I'd like to welcome everybody to the January 2021 Town Board meeting for the town of Farmville. Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present. Dr. Hobbs will join us by phone. Dr. Hobbs, can you hear me okay? All right. Commissioner Dixon, I may go to you throughout the evening to, if I can't hear something or somebody the commissioner can't. Also, Town Manager David Hodgkins is by phone tonight. Mr. Hodgkins, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
All right. Let the record show that all are present and can be heard, be accounted for. First I'd like to do tonight is call on Wes Thomas to deliver our invocation, and after that I'll ask Commissioner Burt Smith to lead us in the pledge to the flag of our country.
All right. Before we pray, the mayor's asked that we have a moment of silence for all the citizens we've lost in 2020. We lost some really dedicated citizens in our community in this past year. So at this time, let's have a moment of silence for them, and then I'll go into the prayer. Let us pray. Father God, I first want to say thank you and show gratitude for all you have done for us as a nation, a community, and as individuals. Many of us know, and I hope all will one day recognize, that we have been blessed many times and in many ways by your sovereign and powerful hands. Tonight, cover your elected and chosen people as they conduct the business of this town. Give them wisdom, discernment, a sense of fairness and equality, as well as boldness to lead and to lead with integrity. Lord, we pray now in Christ Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Smith.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Once again, thank you everybody for being here. I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Commissioner Smith for filling in for me last time. And as most of you know, I had the COVID, and it is definitely bringing on more conversation tonight, which we will get into as we proceed. For those of you that did not pick up an agenda when you came in, they're available at the door. The next item is citizens' presentation. Let it known that everyone having business with the town of Farmville will be heard. This citizens' presentation is limited to 3 minutes, and all questions and comments will be directed to the board. Amy Johnson will keep the time on this. We ask that you approach the podium, give us your name and your address, and then take your 3 minutes from there. The board customarily does not render any decisions, but if necessary, we will put you in contact with somebody that can answer all your questions. Tonight's in citizen presentation, my dear friend Damon Barnes. Damon, you just come on up, sir.
Good evening. As most of y'all know, I'm Damon, owner of Barnes Car Wash, which was sold December 4th of 2020. And I'm in the process of buying the old dry cleaners on Main Street, S&H Dry Cleaners, which I want to continue my services up there. But there's an issue with the zoning for the area for the car lot part, and whatever can be done, from the town or town officials to get it rezoned, I like for to make it happen if it's possible. And I mean, if I have to do something to to make it work, or if it just ain't gonna work, I like to know. But I mean, it's a part of my income. It's a part of the way I take care of my family. It's a way to support the town. So if there's anything I could do, or anything could be done, just please let me know. Thank you.
Damon, have you met Justin Oates?
Yes, sir.
I think Justin would be your first go-to to get started.
Okay.
And we'll take our advice from him and move forward.
All right.
Certainly do, and good luck.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others on the citizen presentation, that brings us down to the town manager comments. Mr. Hodgkins? Room's yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just have one quick item since I'm remote. other than to say in 30-plus years, this may be the first meeting that I've not attended in person. So this feels really strange to me. But anyway, the mayor has mentioned, I think, before, and it may have been reported in the newspaper, I'm not sure, but the old H.B. Suggs School was placed as of November 9th on the National Register of Historic Places, which is quite an accomplishment, and concludes a very long process. And hopefully this will enable the owners to seek and obtain grant money and other special consideration for restoring that building and putting it to more use than its current state. So I just, for the benefit of the public, I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. It's quite an accomplishment. That's all I had tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments for the town manager? Anybody? Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, that will bring us down to our next item, which is the financial report, which is in your book. Does anybody have any questions of Amy concerning the financial report? Amy, I will ask you one. How'd the audit go? How's that going? They indicated that we were in good shape. Okay, I appreciate that. Anybody have any questions of Amy? Bert?
They're not finished with the audit.
No, sir, they're not.
When do they anticipate to be through?
There were some guideline changes, were there not?
3 to 4 weeks, but usually it's 3 to 4 staff.
Didn't they get some type of extension on that, though? Yeah, so. But I spoke with Jay, and he seems to be really high on where we are. Anybody else have a question for Amy? Item G will be changes, additions, and deletions to the agenda. I'll start with you, David. David, you got one you want to add, right?
Yes, sir. I sent out an email to everyone earlier today. Be glad to answer any questions on that, but it relates to extending the emergency FMLA leave for COVID-related illness is among an individual employee or a family member. That federal requirement expired December 31st. So I'd like the board to consider a local extension.
Okay. Board, you received this in your email package this afternoon. Is there a motion that we add this as agenda item number 12?
I'll make a motion that we add it as agenda item number 12.
Okay. Brenda has made a motion of the extension to the leave under the CARES Act. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Dr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposing? Carries. That will be item number 12 on the agenda. Next item is something that is near and dear to me, and I'm going to go down front for this. And give me just a second.
Can you sit there?
Thanks, sir. I have a proclamation that I'd like to read and share that is, it's an interesting world that we live in. And I want to thank the folks who try to make it safer. This is a Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month proclamation here. And it says, whereas human trafficking involves the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, buying or selling of human beings for their services of labor, commercial sex, through the use of force, fraud, or coercion. And whereas human trafficking violates basic human rights and deprives victims of human dignity and freedom, victims are dehumanized and forced into modern-day slavery. And whereas human trafficking is a growing global national product, with North Carolina being consistently ranked among the top 10 states with prevalence in human trafficking. And whereas it is imperative that we educate our communities, our young people, and our families to take an active interest in learning how to recognize the risk and resist predators who use coercion and threats to manipulate children as young as 12 years old into labor and sex trafficking. Whereas in recognition of the need of education in North Carolina General Assembly legislated mandated that sex trafficking prevention and awareness information be included in the sexual health education curriculum. Whereas the North Carolina General Assembly enacted legislation in 2019 mandating that sex trafficking training be provided to public schools personnel. And whereas the Pitt County Coalition Against Human Trafficking seeks to eradicate human trafficking by empowering organizations and individuals through collaboration, leadership, and training. And whereas the Pitt County Sheriff's Office, the Pitt County Department of Social Services, Pitt County Schools, and many other organizations are active members of the Pitt County Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And whereas Farmville is committed to protecting the people vulnerable to human trafficking and taking action to end human trafficking through prevention, prosecution, and partnership. Now, therefore, I, John Moore, Mayor, do hereby proclaim January 2021 Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month in Farmville and commend its observation to all the citizens stated the 4th day of January 2021. We'll do this from a distance. Yeah, let's do it like this. Is this going to work? Hold on a second.
Let's see your face for a second.
There you go. If we could get a few comments, please.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for your kindness in reading the proclamation and signing it. I bring this to you from our nonprofit, of course, North Carolina Stop Human Trafficking, but also from the Pitt County Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which we started back in 2016, and which involves, as the proclamation listed, a lot of different organizations and agencies across the county. And we are just really excited that so many different types of organization, from local municipalities to our law enforcement partners, to DSS, to other nonprofits, the school system, just so many different groups recognize the need. And of course, many of you will have noticed in the news over the last week or so that if you thought it wasn't happening here, the confirmation of that came when we have a 16-year-old girl who was victimized last week, had been victimized for over a period of time, and then died last week, we believe, at the hands of her trafficker. So as horrible as that is, the one tiny positive thing that can come out of something that horrible is that people will understand that it's happening and that we need to protect our young people from this. Last comment I'll make regarding that is during the COVID period, the instances of children who have been, who are being recruited and who are being groomed online especially, has increased exponentially. We have data from the North Carolina Internet Crimes Against Children Department of the SBI that shows that calls coming into ICAC have more than doubled from last year. The calls have more than doubled, the charges have more than doubled, the convictions have more than doubled, and the cases that have been turned over to the feds because of their seriousness have more than doubled. So for those of us who are parents and grandparents, be especially careful with your children and educate yourself about what they are doing online. And our nonprofit does offer a webinar, and we'll be offering next week a webinar on tips on keeping your kids safe online.
Thank you for your efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next item is a public hearing for the structure for demolition of 4337 Thorn Street, parcel number 27888. Paul, you got this?
I got it.
This is a public hearing. The presenter is Paul Ellis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. The property we're talking about tonight is located at 4337 West Thorn Street. It's Pitt County parcel 24888. If you look in your agenda pack, it might say 27888, but it's really 24888. There's two structures located on this same parcel. One of the structures is a duplex, the other is a single-family dwelling. These structures have been vacant for quite some time and are in poor repair. Excuse me. Ms. Mary Foreman has a life estate in the properties, and her two daughters, Ms. Lordine Foreman and Ms. Brenda Foreman, will assume joint ownership at her death. Attorney Jim Perry has been appointed guardian for Ms. Mary Foreman. This case is a little different than some of the others that I've brought up here, so I'm going to kind of go through a timeline in this process, and I'll try to be as quick as I can, but we want to make sure that we kind of covered everything. I started this process in October of 2019 by sending a certified letter to Ms. Mary Foreman requesting assistance with entering the structures on this property for inspections. On October 28th of 2019, I received a letter from Attorney Jim Perry informing me that he had been appointed guardian for Ms. Mary Foreman. He contacted his rental agent to meet with me to assist with the inspections of the two properties. This occurred on November 4th of 2019. Mr. Frank DeSalle was the rental agent for Mr. Perry, and he met me on site, and we inspected both structures. We found electrical and plumbing that needed updating. There's wood rot around the eaves, and I do have pictures, but I decided not to pass the pictures out because I'm not sure with COVID going on that that's a good idea. But I do have them if you want to see them. On November 13th, I received a call from Mr. Perry to set up a phone meeting on November 18th to discuss the findings from that inspection. So we did have that phone conversation on the 18th of November in 2019. At that time, Mr. Perry stated that Ms. Mary Foreman wished to convey that property to the town of Farmville. Instead of us going through the condemnation process, she would give it to the town of Farmville. At that time, I contacted Chris to give him the information for Mr. Perry so they could get together and make all this happen. Okay, let's fast forward a few months. On June 15, 2020, I called Mr. Perry to discuss the status of this, where we were at on conveying this property to the town of Farmville. At that time, he informed me that Ms. Foreman's daughter, Ms. Brenda Foreman, was opposed to transferring the property to the town. As I understand it, and Chris can help me out if I don't explain it properly, because Ms. Mary Foreman has a life estate, she cannot give that property away unless the two daughters that will receive it at her death sign off on it.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, so on July 20th, 2020, Mr. Perry asked me if I would go to Greene County on August the 5th of 2020 to attend a hearing with the clerk of court concerning Ms. Mary Foreman. Justin and I attended this hearing. At this hearing, Mr. Perry asked the court to remove him as guardian for Ms. Mary Foreman, and the clerk of court would not do that. She refused that request. On sometime in August of 2020, Ms. Brenda Foreman wanted to set up a meeting to discuss the ongoing issues with the property. Justin and I met with Ms. Foreman concerning this, and at that meeting, I informed Ms. Foreman that we would continue with the condemnation process. Because this case was a little different than what we've been dealing with, Justin and I decided to start the process over just to make sure that we were on good legal standing with our ordinances and the state of North Carolina. So on September 21st of 2020, I called Mr. Perry to let him know I was sending another letter to continue the process. He told me to include both sisters as well with that letter. So on September 21st, I did just what he recommended. Miss Mary Foreman, Mr. Perry, and the two daughters were copied on that letter. On October 5th of 2020, Ms. Brenda Foreman met with me to assist with the inspection of the two properties. She told me at that time that she thought that she could get someone to maybe bring those properties up to code instead of tearing them down, which I'm fine with. If she can bring them up to code, that's not a problem. On October 5th, I sent a letter after our meeting to all the parties telling them that they had 30 days to I sent a letter to all parties setting up a meeting on October 12th to go over the findings for the inspection. And on October, no one came to that meeting, bottom line. October 19th, 2020, I sent another letter to all the parties giving them 30 days to either remove the property or to bring it to minimum housing standards. And of this date, nothing's been done to bring the structures to minimum housing standards. And I know Ms. Brenda Foreman is here, so I'm sure she's going to have something that she wants to say. But keep in mind, at this time, the actions that you guys take, they will still have 90 days to bring these properties to minimum housing code or remove them from the property. At this time, I'm requesting permission to move forward with the condemnation process.
Anybody have a question of Paul? Any questions of Paul?
That was a little long-winded, but
Yeah, you guys went the distance on that. Paul, if you'll just have a seat. This is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak to this, if you'll step to the podium and identify yourself. It is a public hearing and is open to the public. Hello?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Brenda Foreman. I'm one of those persons that he referred to. I have a little bit of background, and I want to assure you, I have a chip on my shoulder, but it's not about you all, and it's not about this. So if you hear the chip, understand it's not about you, not about this situation. I understand housing code, building code, at least as a principal. I have a planning degree. I was a planner for 30 days, I believe, but for other times it was very much planning related. I understand communities. There are 3 houses in Snow Hill in my neighborhood that would fit the same. So I understand what they do for a neighborhood. And they also, I think it has been a win-win for me, for my family, and for the town. My dad, who is now deceased and is buried here in Farmville, and because his roots are Farmville, and I would claim Farmville as a second place. My granddaddy lived in Farmville, and when you're the oldest grandchild, and that's where you hang out. In fact, there's only grandchild for a long time. So at any rate, Farmville has the sentimental as well as an understanding of contributing to the community, and that's important. But it's not a kumbaya thing. It made money. And I would like those things to fit together. I would like for the property to be a contributing part of the community, and it's not my money, it's not going in my aunt's. And for my mother is 96, and the idea, of course, and my dad did this. My dad was the son of a sharecropper, my granddad, and I was concerned when I first heard. Now, you understand, I wasn't involved in any of this, not any fault of you all, because for reasons satisfactory to them, my mother has a guardian or representative, and that person is not me. And so I have to ride by the street or look at the property, or I have to call and ask somebody what's happening with my mother's property. I think when a person is in charge of managing property, that means you keep up the property. You use the resources that you have so that it can be, and when it's income-producing property, there's a reason it's called income-producing property. You should try to get it to the point that it produces income. Well, that's not what the...
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Sure, okay. I'll do that. As you say, we'll cut to the quick. It is my intent to bring the property up to code. I think it would be a waste. I might ask for some indulgence on time. I am perfectly amenable to closing the property in a state that would be satisfactory to the officials and to maintain the properties, but I did not anticipate that it would require serious court action, but in order to do something, one person is taking in the property, and any money, any income that comes into my mother goes to the court appointee, but that's the money that would be contributing to to maintaining, to bringing the property up to code.
Let me just ask a quick question here, and I'll ask the board. So you're saying, am I hearing you say that you're asking for time to bring the property up? Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that, and for two reasons. Yes, point that the most important point is, I would like for the property, or it is my goal, it was my intent, and it was my intent before there was any formal action, to bring my mother's properties up to code so that they fit the community and so that they contribute to, earn income to contribute to her upkeep.
Okay, let me hold that thought for just a second. Paul, you mentioned something about 90 days. Help me with that, please.
If you take action tonight, she would still have 90 days, 3 months to bring the property up. Don't count that. I had discussed it, so she's aware of that.
Okay, so if the board, just to be clear, if the board decides to approve the demolition of the structure, Brenda has 90 days to bring this up, and that what the board says goes away. Okay. Board, y'all understand that? Okay. Ms. Brenda, I'm going to ask you to stand there just 1 second, if you don't mind, okay? And ask the board, do they have any questions of you? Commissioner Smith.
I have 2 questions. One, is that home where you grew up? Is that your home place?
Which place?
The one on the corner.
No.
Investment property or?
It was, I grew up in property that my maternal granddad built. This is my paternal granddad in Farmville, and I was really, and I'm going to make this real short.
Please.
I was really concerned when I first started hearing about wanting to demolish some property, that property needed to be demolished, because I have a particular sentimental as well as a business investment in the property, and it's the oldest property, and I thought, well, that must be it. But that wasn't it. So, no, these were properties that,
To answer the commissioner's question, the answer is no. It was not your home place.
No, it's not my
Okay.
home place. No, they were built.
Okay.
And I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
And maybe this is for Paul, I'm not quite sure. Can the improvements that need to be done that are required to have been done in 90 days?
Hold on, one second.
Sure.
Second. So, to answer your 2 questions, the first one was no, and the second one, it can be done in 90 days, which brings me to this. Are you prepared to do this in 90 days?
Okay, and that's what I was about to get to. I might be back to ask for some time, but we can make, and here is my concern. I don't have legal control of the property, and I can't, so I have to accomplish that. Mr. Perry should be making a report to the clerk this month, and we would revisit that issue. It would be, I've been trying to avoid spending $30,000 to get, or whatever, and open it, to get in control of the property, but I will do what we have to do. So my first, what I had planned is to organize the properties according to not just Farmville and Snow Hill, to organize the properties according to how much needed to be done, make a priority, and how much income, and that's your pecking order. So this changed my pecking order.
Let me ask Paul this for the benefit of the board. If the board says we approve the request to bring this building down in 90 days, the entire landscape can change, okay? In that possibility, suppose that they've done what they're supposed to do, and in that, say, day 60, just pulling numbers out of the air, the work is started, and there's diligent work going on. Can the 90 days, what happens at that point with the board? Right.
We don't want that. If she shows that she's trying to turn this house up, we'll have to.
Okay. So,
Excuse me, can I translate? What I am hearing is,
if you don't mind, please, for the benefit of time, I am going to ask Paul to put that, what you just said, in perspective so that everybody understands when the board, if the board should say, you got 90 days or we're taking it down, explain what may happen if work starts. Okay, board, do you understand that? Okay. Is that clarification that you need?
that's exactly what I wanted to, that accomplishes my goal. My goal was to say that we can work together if I'm doing my part.
Okay, if you're doing your part, you have protected the town, because what they want to do is they want to make for sure that if you're doing the work, keep doing the work. But tonight, the board needs to decide if they want to put that in that 90-day window, correct? In the 90-day window, okay? So to be clear, in a moment, I'm going to call for this public hearing to close, and I'm going to call for some comments. And if the board should decide to go with the 90 days and you start work, you realize that you continue to do the work. And that the last thing we want to do is take this property down. Is that what you wanted to hear from us?
That's exactly where I'd like to go. I think it would be a waste of landfill time, landfill space.
But you just hang on a minute, because we're gonna see what we can do here, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Right,
is anyone else? Yes, please, yes, ma'am, and thank you for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? If not, I'll declare this public hearing closed. And questions, comments, and or motions concerning the approval, the request to demolition of parcel number 24888, 437 West Thorn Street in Farmville. Questions, comments, and or motions?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that 4337 West Thorn Street be demolished after 90 days from today, if no action is taken by the owners to remove the structure or to bring the structure to minimum housing standards.
Okay. Board, do you understand the motion? Are there any questions and or comments? Dr. Hobbs, do you have a question or comment? Dr. Hobbs, do you have a question?
I think I understand it, but I want to clarify what I thought I heard.
Yes, ma'am.
What I thought I heard was that the board would vote to demolish the building after 90 days if there has not been any action to upgrade or bring it up to code. However, once the work begins to bring it up to code, the 90-day demolition will cease to be invoked.
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting a head nod. That is correct. That is the way that we understand that. Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, you've heard the motion, board. I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the request to demolish the structures 4337 West Thorn Avenue, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dr. Hobbs, your vote?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any opposed? Seeing none. Paul, you have been approved to demolish the structure at 4337 West Thorn Avenue. But Brenda, I hope we don't have to do that. And I do urge you to keep contact with Justin and Paul, because they're very easy to work with. They certainly are.
They have been fine.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming.
Paul, do you want to speak to how much work needs to be done? In other words, I'm assuming that if they go hammer up one board in 90 days, that's not going to cut it. But for the benefit of Ms. Foreman,
I worked for developers and was never out before. So long.
There you go. And just so you know, these meetings are taped, and we can go back for that reference. You two have an arrangement there. I'm looking forward to seeing positive action there. Thank you. That brings us down to items for consent. Board, you've seen them in your package. Is there a motion that we accept the items for consent? Is there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dr. Hobbs, your vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for that. That'll bring us down to items for discussion and decision. Jeffrey, I think you've got the first one, the presentation of sidearm to Chief Donnie Green and Sergeant Ennis.
Mayor, Commissioners, hope y'all doing well tonight. Today I bring before you my request that to give the sidearms that Sergeant Derek Ennis and Chief Donnie Green carried on duty. Effective December 23rd, 2020, Chief Donnie Green retired. He had 27 years of service with the Farmville Police Department. Chief Green started here in 1993, and he started out as a police officer, and he worked his way up through the entire rank structure of the police department and retired as chief of police. January the 5th, actually it'll be official tomorrow, Sergeant Derek Ennis retired from the police department. He had 26 years of credible service with the Farmville Police Department. He started here in 1994. He was later promoted to sergeant, and that's where he remained at until his retirement date. Per General Statute 20-187.2, the governing body of law enforcement agency can, in its discretion, give the retiring party their service weapon that they carried on duty. It is my request that Chief Donnie Green and Sergeant Derek Ennis be awarded their sidearm for their years of service with the town of Farmville. If that is granted by y'all, per Chief Green, he wishes that Commissioner Elks present him his sidearm, and I had talked to Sergeant Ennis. He is recommending that Chief Donnie Green presents him with his sidearm.
Okay. We thank you for that. Board, you've heard the comments about two fine folks that have served us for 27 and 26 years. You've heard the request for the presentations at that time. Any discussion on this? Any discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion that we proceed with the presentation of sidearms to Chief Green and Sergeant Ennis?
I'll make a motion to proceed with the presentation of the sidearms.
Commissioner Smith has made a motion that we present sidearms as presented here tonight by the Chief. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Dr. Hobbs, your vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for that, Chief.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
Thank you. The next item, Justin, you got this one. I think it's extend a moratorium on a new annual or one-time food truck permits. It's been a hot item for us lately, so we're looking forward to this one. You put a lot of work into it, and we appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. Evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and Happy New Year to everyone. What we've got before you tonight, we're asking for an extension to the food truck moratorium that was put in place. As you recall, back at your October board meeting, we put this 3-month moratorium in place to give us an opportunity to discuss some of the concerns that were growing regarding food trucks in town. And this, 3-month would go from that night, October 5th, through January 5th of 2021. So this moratorium is set to expire tomorrow. I know we've had some email discussions as well as a couple of meetings since that time, trying to hammer down some potential solutions to this matter, but we still have not resolved the matter yet. So what I am proposing at this point would be to request that the board extend this moratorium for an additional 3 months. What this would allow us to do, and as you'll see later on in the agenda for the draft items for the board retreat coming up in February, I would like to have this as an item of discussion at the board retreat. So that, and what I would like to do at that time is to bring to you some proposals based off the discussions that we've had in some of our meetings over the last couple of months. I know we haven't been able to meet fully as a group between myself and the entire board. I know I've emailed with some. We've had some smaller meetings with others, but I would like to speak with the whole board during the retreat setting to discuss some of the options that we have, and then hopefully from there be able to make a final decision so that we can move forward one way or the other with this. So with that said, I'm requesting that the board take action to extend the moratorium an additional 3 months at this time.
Okay, Justin, if you'll hang on just a second. Any questions, board, of Justin?
Yeah, I've got Justin.
Commissioner Hobbs, if you'll yield to Commissioner Smith, then I'll come to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, as I understand it, these are annual permits, so everyone that's had a permit granted in 2020 That permit is now expired.
That's correct. All permits that were current expired December the 31st. At this point, they cannot come back in to renew one until the moratorium has been lifted.
So with this 3-month moratorium, none of those will be able to come in, and no new permits will be granted.
No new annual and one-time permits. Yeah, at this point, the moratorium does not, we didn't cover anything with town-sponsored events in the event that we, needed to be able to issue a permit if the town had an event, come up that required a food truck. So again, this is just specific to one-time and annual permits like it was in October.
Let me go, Dr. Hobbs. Dr. Hobbs, you have Justin's attention.
Yes, I have a question, and it may have been answered because I'm not hearing everything that's said. But I have a question about specificity on the annual and or one time. Is the one time a dated date that they can use for that one time? And is annual a time frame between one time or another? How do you specify when it will be used as annual or one time?
The one-time permit, you're correct, it is for the date that the applicant requests and for that date only. The annual permits as they were issued are run through December 31st of each year. So if we were to reinstate food truck permits, any that would be issued this year annually would run through December 31st of 2021. As Commissioner Smith was just mentioning, anyone who had a permit in 2020, they were able to continue to operate through December the 31st. However, now that those have expired, until this moratorium is lifted, we will not be issuing any additional annual permits.
And how many one-time permits can you get within a year?
We have not, how many can you get within a year? Is that the question? I'm sorry. There's no limit at this point on how many one-time permits that you can get through the year. What we did is to incentivize going with the one-time permit fee. Our fee structure was $100 for an annual permit and $50 for a one-time permit. So, if you were to have 3, one-time, year events, it would be in your better interest financially to, get the annual permit fee as to paying $150 to operate 3 times. So that was something we tried to work with in our fee schedule.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Brenda?
Okay, so let me make sure I have this completely understood. You're telling me, or telling us, that the food trucks that are coming to town right now, because we know that there are 2, they're not allowed to come right now?
Not right now because their permits have expired, and until the moratorium is lifted, at this point, we would not be issuing any additional permits. Their permits were valid through December 31st. So the 2 who were coming to town that did have permits last year, even when we instituted the moratorium, if they already had a permit, we allowed them to operate through the end of the year. But at this point, they would not be allowed to operate until they have a new annual permit.
But we're stopping them from getting that annual permit for 3 months.
Correct, until we...
I don't like that. I got problems with that. Because, I'm all about the working dollar for the people coming in and trying to make an honest living. And I'm also all about our restaurants as well. But I have a problem with the fact that we've got people, we haven't told these people that tomorrow Chick-fil-A is not supposed to be in Farmville. We haven't told Mark Shirley on Wednesday that he's not allowed to be in Farmville. So what happens? We show up and say, you got to shut down?
At this point, what we would do for this week, if they do show up to operate, now they, were under the understanding, and they realized when they submit their applications previously that they were running through the 31st of this past year, so they would know they would need to come back in. So if they do show up, we'll notify them. We won't run them off on the spot that day, but we'll let them know that, the moratorium is in place and that, they will need to get an application to come back to compliance, but we can't issue those until the moratorium is lifted. Again, I'm not sure which direction the board wants to go as far as this moratorium. Again, it's set to expire tomorrow. If it does expire and we don't extend the moratorium, then, if someone were to come in, we would be required to issue them a food truck permit. Again, the suggestion that, had come to me from the board back in October was that we take the time with the moratorium to try to work a solution. At this point, we don't have a solution that was agreeable based off the discussions that we had. So the purpose for extending this out will be to continue to have those discussions so that we can, come to a final agreeable decision.
Okay. When was the last time we had a discussion about it? In October, September?
There was some email. The action was taken in October, and we had some. There were some emails sent out, which I requested some feedback from commissioners. There were a couple of small meetings in early November, but after that, we have not had any discussions since that time.
So this is our responsibility that we haven't done anything about this prior to this moratorium expiring.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I just have a real problem with telling someone that's trying to work that they can't work. I feel the same way about the parking of the trucks, where these people that live here, the whole 9 yards. So I, in good faith, cannot vote yes to this, whatever we're going to talk about in a few minutes. People need their jobs.
And believe me, I understand. That's been the toughest part about this. I know a lot of times, we put our heads together and we can come up with a solution pretty quickly, but I know there's so many different variables pulling at each end of this this topic, which is why we've not been able to come to an agreeable solution, because you're trying to weigh, all of the interest involved, and so it's certainly been tough. So, I was hoping within that time frame we would have come to something agreeable, but as of, when we submit for the agenda in December, we just at this point have not come to an agreement on that. So, again, if there's no action taken this evening, the issue there is that we can have individuals come back in and receive a food truck permit. I can't, not issue them a permit legally. So like I said, again, it's up to the board at this point as to what they would like to do regarding this. So like I said, that's kind of where we stand at this point.
I've got a couple of questions. Are the food trucks that are currently coming to Farmville, do they know that there was a moratorium set established that there would be possibly no more permits going forward as of this day? Are they aware of that?
I know at least one of the Chick-fil-A, they were aware that, it was going to be coming up, the moratorium was going to be in place, through January, and, potentially could be extended. I'm not sure if Mr. Shirley with Smokehouse, I'm not sure if he was aware of that or not, but we can certainly reach out to contact him regarding that. Again, he would still need to come in, even at this point, even if he wanted to continue to operate and, didn't know about it, he would still need to come in because we have not received a new permit application for him for 2021. Even if we didn't have the moratorium in place, he wouldn't be able to operate until he renewed a permit at this point.
Any more questions? What is the pleasure of the board on this? Questions, more questions, comments, or motion?
I've got a couple of little bit of clarification.
Please do.
I feel a little bit different than Brenda does, because I feel like we really need to support our bricks and mortar restaurants, and I know that a lot of them have had some specific problems. But my question is, not having advised Mark Shirley,
The Smokehouse barbecue, yeah.
Is there a vehicle where we could give him, rather than, give him an annual permit or something like that? I really think that I'm opposed to, particularly at this, anyway, but, a vehicle where we might give him 30 days or something. I don't want to give him a year of an annual permit tomorrow.
Yeah, if this board so chooses, we could extend the permit dates for the individuals who currently have permits. I think that kind of the opinion, when we went to the initial moratorium was to allow those who had permits already to continue to operate. If the board would like to do that, I don't see an issue with allowing them to do that.
Bert, just a thought. If we were to extend the permits, and you were talking about making a decision at the retreat, okay? And the retreat is the third weekend in February, is that correct? Am I right, or the last weekend? Last weekend. Whenever. We would have time, they would know when that retreat was over, what March would bring, right?
Well, what would happen, the decision would be made as to how we would amend the ordinance, and then that would still need to go to the planning board. It could go to them at their March meeting and then come to the commissioners at their April meeting. I believe, according to my calendar, I think April the 4th would be the commissioners meeting, so that would be within that time window, that 3-month time window out to April 5th that had been proposed, yeah.
Let me, here again, clarification. Are you, am I hearing you say we're catching them short and we need to give them some time in there to?
Well, you know, I would have thought that when we set this moratorium, maybe we would have told the people 90 days ago that in all likelihood you cannot get a permit for next year. And you apparently had that discussion maybe with Chick-fil-A.
I've had that discussion with Chick-fil-A, as well as we've had a few other inquiries about, you know, coming to town for food trucks, and we've informed them that the moratorium was in place.
Right. But the only one that has not been informed
is Mr. Shirley, and which
We only have 2 coming right now. Correct?
That's correct.
And see, the other thing is, and I am all for our permanent locations, doing everything we can. I mean, I do everything I can to support each one of them. But you look at Gorham's Food Truck, who now is a solid restaurant here in town. But he had to earn his way to get there and someone be there. And then we've got things going on at the ball field at times that we're going to need a food truck down there because there's hardly anything open here on Sundays and Saturday evenings. And that's a big plus to me, to be able to have a food truck down at the ball field if they have 30 minutes between games so they can grab something to eat, or if they have 2 hours between games, they can go to any of our freestanding restaurants. But I just don't think, I think we're cutting ourselves short if we don't allow new business to come in, and we don't know what that future holds. And if we're known as a town that's not welcome, that we're not welcoming people,
I definitely support extending the moratorium, the moratorium on annual permits and the moratorium on one-time permits. However, I can see how, I mean, I think if I was in the food truck business in in the town of Farmville, and the town of Farmville passed a moratorium on food trucks, I would think I would be smart enough to make it my business to realize there was a moratorium on food trucks. However, given everyone the benefit of the doubt, I could see maybe sort of going along with extending the moratorium on annual permits, but discontinuing the moratorium on one-time permits so long as that one-time permit wasn't more than 30 days out. So, for example, today somebody could get a one-time permit for January 30th, but not February 15th. And certainly with 30 days' notice, if we did revisit the moratorium on our February meeting, everyone who would be affected would have an understanding of the town of Farmville's position at that point. All that said, that's me trying to compromise with the board, but personally, I support extending the moratorium that's been in place for the last 3 months.
I would also like for the Recreation Department to weigh in under the new director on how the concession stand can be utilized. It may not be practical, Diane. It may or it may not, but I think that the board would benefit from hearing your position on that. Not now. Not now. No, not now. But at the retreat. At the retreat. So I think the question now is we're dealing with 2 folks that have come into town, and what do we want to do with them since they didn't know? Is that fair?
Chick-fil-A knows.
Chick-fil-A knows, yeah.
Okay, so the barbecue house does not know, the smokehouse. Okay?
And if we renew his permit tomorrow, is it going to be for a whole year, or is it going to be for say 90 days?
At this point, if the board were not to extend the moratorium or take any specific action tonight, if he were to come in and request an annual permit, then we would have to issue him that. Now, we will not automatically issue him a new permit. He would have to come in and request that himself. So if he doesn't come in to get a permit and he operates this week, with an expired permit, then at that point, we would let him know. So again, really, I think the options for the board tonight would be either to fully extend the moratorium with, as proposed, with, no, additional grace period for the existing, or to extend some sort of grace period to those who currently have the food truck permits until we take some sort of other action.
How big a problem we got if we extend the current permit right now? Current permit, we extended that to after we make some decisions at the retreat. How much problem do we have?
I don't think there would be much problem. I mean, again, you're only looking at 2 that are operating right now. I mean, you're looking at, Chick-fil-A coming once a week, and then the Smokehouse, I believe, is maybe twice a week. As far as from our end, I could just go ahead. It wouldn't require them to come back in and do anything. We could just administratively extend those permit deadlines out. Again, the only thing that would come into play is if, the permits were to expire, they were to come to town, we would, have to go out and enforce that and ask them to, submit a new application.
Clarification. Board at retreat decides that we are no longer going to accept food trucks in town. What does that mean?
If the board were to decide no more food trucks down, again, we would still have to go through the official process of amending the ordinance. However, at that time, again, that's why if you do want to extend the current permits, you may want to consider, the date that you put on that. It could be that you extend it through April, 5th, when the, ordinance will be updated at that time. If you'd like to do it shorter, you could do that. But again, in order for it to, even if the board is in full lockstep agreement at the board retreat, we're still going to have to go through the planning board and come back before you to take official action.
This certainly has been a hot potato on a lot of levels. So, real quick, what is your suggestion to extend it for 3 months? Is that what you're saying?
My suggestion would be, or what I was bringing to you tonight, the suggestion would be to extend for 3 months. Again, no, there hadn't been any discussion prior to tonight about, extending it for those individuals who still currently had it. I wouldn't object to that if we wanted to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, this was strictly extending the moratorium as it was. The discussion that was had at the October meeting would be that once we moved into the new year and their permits had expired, we would not issue any new permits, but we did not discuss extension of existing permits.
Just here again, and you are sure that the Smokehouse is not aware of the moratorium?
I can't speak with certainty. I know I have not contacted them regarding the moratorium. That's not to say they haven't heard about it, because honestly, I would expect it.
They've not contacted you?
They have not contacted me, no.
Okay. All right. I think we got what we need. So I'm going to ask the board questions, comments, or motion on this.
I would make a motion that we follow the staff's suggestion and extend the moratorium on new annual one-time food truck permits for another 3 months.
Board, you've heard the motion. Any comments on Commissioner Dixon's motion?
Okay, I just need to make sure I'm clear. So if we vote on this in the affirmative, that means that the 2 that are coming can still come?
That would be a decision for the board to make. I mean, I personally, as I said, I would not have an issue with the 2 continuing to come, but that would be ultimately a decision of the board.
What I heard is that the food trucks are not rolling.
It's just the continuation of the status quo.
Right.
No new permits, no annual permits, no one-time permits.
Yeah.
Except for town events.
But if the suggestion was brought up tonight, that was my initial recommendation, because we had not talked previously about the possibility of extending the existing food trucks, extending their permits out while we continue to deliberate what we wanted to do. If the board so desires, if you wanted to extend the permits for the 2 that we are currently active, you could do that if you would like. That would not be an issue, but I think we just need to make clarification that we're going to extend their permits out while not issuing any new.
That would call for an amendment to your motion, right?
If that's what the board wanted to do.
That would call for an amendment to your motion. So you need to go.
If you want to make that.
If you want to do that, or if you want to stick with basically the food trucks are are not allowed for the next 90 days.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my motion, although everybody certainly can disagree. And let me just, for the record, and Justin and I have talked about this, I don't see food trucks being any different than any other business. I also support moratoriums on temporary business in a variety of industries. For example, Mr. Barnes has proved his dedication to the town of Farmville and had been in the automobile washing business for several years, establishes a location, follows a set of rules, permits that the town sets forward. I would oppose car wash trucks permitting in Farmville too, one time or annual. I don't see food as being any different than any other business that is established in Farmville.
Board, do you understand the motion?
Yes.
You understand the motion. Dr. Hobbs, do you understand the motion, ma'am?
I think I do.
Okay. All in favor of Commissioner Dixon's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Dr. Hobbs, your vote?
If I heard it correctly, everything stays the same with the extension of 3 months. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
No, the food trucks are not coming. Correct. That's the easiest way to understand the motion.
You said the food trucks would not.
They would not be in Farmville tomorrow, and they would not know what to do and after the 90 days until we decided to retreat moving forward.
Until we decide, okay, yes, I get it, thank you.
And you,
And I can go for that.
okay. I have Commissioner Smith, Shackelford, Hobbs, and Dixon saying aye and one opposed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The ayes have it. Okay. But Justin, I will say this. I think if it's worth saying, it's worth writing down. And in today's world with text, emails, it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around somebody not getting and knowing. But at the same time, if a truck that wants to come to Farmville and sell a particular item calls me and asks me what's the deal with the moratorium, I can't help but think the people that are already here know of the moratorium. I didn't think that was proper to say that during the discussion, but I feel sure that that we will work through this and move forward. I would also urge you to talk to the restaurants in town and be able to give us a feeling of where the restaurants are, the bricks and mortar. And Diane, I would look forward to your comments about the operation of the concession stand at ball games. That would be real important. Okay? All right. Thank you for that. Boy, that's a tough one. Appointment of a voting delegate to the North Carolina League of Municipalities. David, are you there? Can you help me with this?
Yes, sir, I'm here. This is a different request than we've gotten in the past. The North Carolina League of Municipalities, because of COVID restrictions, did not have their traditional conference this year, and normally there's a process they go through at the conference to develop goals for the biennium, which is a 2-year period of time. That is goals that they would advocate with members of the General Assembly. Since they did not have that, committee was formed, the Legislative Policy Committee, which I was actually a member of, went through a series of, I don't know how many potential goals, and basically through that process, distilled it down to 17 potential goals, and which is in your packet. These are listed as things that we would advocate to the General Assembly. They want each town, member town, to develop their not prioritize, but basically just pick the 10 goals out of the 17 that Farmville or whoever would want to the board to advocate for in the General Assembly. And so they're asking us to develop or to designate a representative from the town of Farmville to vote on behalf of the town to convey those top goals from Farmville's perspective.
David, you hold that position now, is that correct?
I'm on the committee that helped develop the goals.
Is there any reason you couldn't be the voting member?
No, oftentimes it's an elected official, but there's no prohibition of a staff member serving in that role.
So I'm led to believe that I should ask for a volunteer, and if I don't get one, I should volunteer you. Is that correct?
If you select someone else, I would want to meet with them anyway to explain the process
Right.
and all that. But obviously, if the board designates me, then I'm aware of the process. So.
If I may be so bold, I personally spent quite a bit of time today on the phone with this league. Prior to going to New Year's last week, I spent a great deal of time on the phone. There's a lot going on. And I think, but where we are and what we've got going on, I'd like for this board to consider, let's put David back on there right now. But if one of you would like that position, all you got to do is say you would, and you can have it. Is that fair? Is there anybody on this board that would like this position? Dr. Hobbs, with you?
I can't hear you. You asked if anybody on the board that would like to participate?
That would like to have this voting position with the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Would you like that position?
I'm not sure I understood what you said. Could you please repeat that again?
Can you repeat it from there, Jamin, so she can hear me? Jamin's going to repeat it because he's closer to the phone.
Commissioner Moore is asking for a volunteer to vote on some questions and ideas for the North Carolina League of Municipality, and he's asked for volunteers.
Thank you. That's not what I heard.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes.
All right. Sorry. Is there a motion that Dr. Hobbs become the voting member here? Make sure she understands, Jamin.
Were you saying yes, meaning you're willing and interested? Or yes, you understand?
Both. I'm interested in someone doing it, and if nobody wants to do it, I will do it.
That's what I heard.
I make a motion before Dr. Hobbs understands this phone call any better, we nominate her.
I'm going to call for a quick vote. All in favor say aye. Ayes have it. Dr. Hobbs, thank you for that.
Thank you. That was very clear. Yeah.
And what our attorney just said, it goes to show, do not miss meetings. You'll get voted for something there. Thank you for that. I certainly do appreciate that. It is a great organization, and you, with any luck, you will be hearing more about that league in Farmville. Thank you for that.
Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
We make a little bit of light of the subject, but the League of Municipalities does a lot of service for towns like us, and Dr. Hobbs, I think, will represent us very well there.
I think so, and I appreciate it, and I think it will bring something to that board of somebody with her expertise. And based on what I heard today, and it certainly will be a big plus for Farmville. Item number 11, consideration for draft agenda for the annual Board of Commissioners Planning Retreat. Before I open this for discussion, I want to serve up some things for the board, and then I'll start with, whoever wants to start of any direction that you have on this. And David, I'll go to you in just a second about this. But I'd like for the board to think about this when David starts making his presentation. I would like for David to give us end of the 6-month report. As you know, we got a report at 6 months on what we had accomplished with our retreat last year. I'd like to see a 6-month report of what we've done the last 6 months, and then I'd like to see a report of what we accomplished during the year. I'd also, David, if you would consider, and the board would consider, having the individual boards, such as the Recreation Board. Diane, you're in my line of sight, so I'm going to use you. That does not mean you. It means the chairman of your board, the president of your board, of somebody from your board to come and make a presentation that sits on that board, not only from Recreation, but from the library and planning and all the boards, in a 3-minute presentation of what they've got going on at the planning board, at the retreat before we get started, so we can hear some of the things that some of these boards would be interested in. So I'd like for the board to consider that as we move forward. David, with that being said, I'll yield to you now for the item Board and Commissioners Annual Retreat Draft Agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Each year we go through a process to come up with items for the agenda for the retreat. As has been mentioned, the retreat is scheduled for February 22nd, 23rd. And I have a draft agenda in your packet just for your consideration. Put draft in red letters, capital letters, so you know this is still a work in progress. Just like the food truck was added last week after I talked with Justin. And of course we'll add the items that Mayor Moore mentioned, and we talked briefly about it earlier today. There may be some other items that come up, but these are items that have come either from me, a board member, or mayor, or your department heads. I've asked them for their input. So some things we do every year, other things are new and specific to this year. So this is a work in progress. It's just for your information at this point. Look at it. If there's anything that, as Mayor Moore mentioned, he had some items to add that we discussed. If there are other items that you can think of that are not on this list or things you really don't think we need to waste time on, please let me know. And then at the next meeting, February 1st meeting, Board of Commissioners meeting, the board will be asked to go ahead and finalize the agenda. So I just wanted to get something in front of you so that you can start looking at it. And we still got another 6 weeks or so to finalize everything, but we have a better or firmer picture of the actual final agenda at your next meeting, which is on February 1st.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, David? Any questions? All right. Seeing no questions. Dr. Hobbs, you have a question of the town manager?
No, I'm fine.
Thank you, ma'am. With that being said, David, I'll let you continue on with item number 12, the extension of the leave time with the CARES Act.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I mentioned this when we added it earlier in the meeting. Basically, the CARES Act that was adopted by Congress back in March of 2020 provided funding for several things and also made several requirements on employers. One of them being that if someone, or the purpose was to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 on the workforce. So one thing that they added was an emergency FMLA standard, which basically provided 80 hours of paid sick leave for full-time employees who were impacted by COVID. That is, they contracted COVID, they had a family member who had COVID, they were caring for that member, they were seeking some sort of treatment or testing, so they had to, sit in the line at Biden or whatever for a couple hours to wait for that. They had a child in daycare and school that, for some reason the daycare was closed down, so they had to care for a child. Those are the types of things that were covered under this, or in essence, or they also had quarantine or whatever. So, there's basically 5 items that are included in this. When the Congress reauthorized some of the CARES Act stuff back in December, and the President signed it late December, this provision was not included. So it expired December 31st. Several counties and towns are considering or maybe have actually enacted extensions of this on their own. And so for private sector employers, there's actually tax breaks for doing this. For governments, obviously we're taxing them, so we don't get a break. It's something that, would be something that's humane and a good, thing. So we have had very few employees, fortunately, have to take advantage of any of these hours. And if the board extends this, it would still extend up to 80 hours of leave time, documented. They'd have to provide information on if they tested positive or whatever, or a family member tested positive. We're already doing that, have been doing that from the beginning, getting evidence of the actual hardship. But This particular provision doesn't add another 80 hours. Let's say they tapped into it back in July and used, they were out 3 days or something. Those previous hours that they used go against the 80 hours. So it doesn't start the clock over. It starts the clock over, extends the clock, but it doesn't give more hours. It just allows use of that 80 hours out into the future. We got something, since I sent out an email earlier this afternoon, we actually got something from the School of Government that I think in my original email I said sunset, it suggested sunset June 30th. The School of Government, I think this is because it's 12 months from the original legislation that Congress is saying you can extend it till March 31st or a shorter period of time, or do nothing. You don't have to extend it at all. It's up to the jurisdiction. So I would amend my recommendation to say that we should extend it, or the board should consider extending it through March 31st, not June 30th, which I had in my original email to you.
Okay. Could everybody hear David okay? Are there any questions? He's asking us to extend the leave under the CARES Act to March 31st. Is that correct, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Till March 31st.
All right. Questions of David Burt?
No question.
Okay, motion, comments?
I'll make a motion that we extend the CARES Act, or extend this benefit, however you want, would be considered a benefit?
It's extension of leave, so.
An extension of leave for possibility of COVID exposure to our employees.
Okay. Commissioner Elks has made a motion that we extend the leave under the CARES Act to March the 31st. Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Any questions on this? Comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Dr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. David, you got to the 31st, okay?
Okay, Mayor, just want to make one quick comment to clarify also, and assuming this is understood. Since the act or the sick leave expired December 31st, we actually have a couple folks who are in this situation now. Technically, starting January 1st, they were not allowed to take any sick leave or special sick leave. They had to use their own. I would hope that the board would consider this action retroactive to January 1st, so that it would pick up, for instance, today, which is a work day.
Does that need to be in the form of a motion?
I don't know. The attorney may want to weigh in on that. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
I would say yes.
Okay. What the town manager is asking is we make this retroactive 3 days ago as of the 1st of January, or 4 days ago, January the 1st. That is what he is asking. Is there a motion that we put this into effect retro to the 1st of January? Will that work, David?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion that we extend it, or we make it retroactive to January 1st.
You've heard Commissioner Elks' is a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dr. Hobbs?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. There you go, David. Anything else on that?
No, sir.
Okay. The next item, and thank y'all for that. And Dr. Hobbs, while I got you, thank you for accepting that position with the league, because you're going to hear that a lot in Farmville in the coming days. That brings us to item L, which is citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for anybody that's with us tonight that has heard anything and have any questions about anything to come before the board and ask us, and we will try to clarify anything that you may have heard tonight. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the board? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming. Gunny, good to see you tonight, sir. It's always my pleasure, and thank you for your service. I will go around the room at this point, and I'll start with Commissioner Dixon, and for closing comments, and tell us something we don't know or something we do need to know. Commissioner?
None tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shack?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Smith?
Nothing tonight other than we missed Town Manager Hodgkins, it's the first time in 30 years that he has not been in a meeting. That's it's a real winning streak, a real streak there.
There you go. Thank you, and thank you for filling in for me the other week. That was, it was late in the afternoon when I got the word that I was positive, and Commissioner Smith, Mayor Pro Tem, did a lot of work in about a 4 hour, after 4 o'clock, getting prepared for the meeting. So thank you for that, Commissioner Ellis.
First of all, I would like to thank Wes and his crew for helping make Home for the Holidays a beautiful event for our town, because our town was gorgeous. All the lights, all the decorations that you all did, and went the extra mile to make it look. The Town Commons was a hallmark picture. And I want to thank every citizen that participated and made sure that we, even though we couldn't do everything else we normally like to do, we at least had a little bit of fun, and it was inexpensive unless you just went all out at your house, and I couldn't get my lights to work half the time, and the other half the time they did. So anyway, I've pretty much cussed those 3 Christmas trees out multiple times in my yard. And I just want to say thank you to all of our town employees. You all, this pandemic is something that we never ever thought that any of us would ever live through, and you all have held the line and done everything you needed to do to help keep our town going. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. A few closing comments. The COVID, thank you for that. The COVID, speaking for...
Mayor, did you call on Commissioner Hobbs?
I did not, and thank you for that. Commissioner Hobbs, closing. Goes to show you should be at the meeting. Commissioner Hobbs, thank you.
Okay, as we close the 2020 year, we can all be grateful and thankful for all the accomplishments achieved in spite of the unprecedented times and the many challenges encountered during this pandemic. However, in contrast, as we approach 2021 with expectations of new opportunities and successes for Farmville and its citizens, we can all look forward to a brighter, happy new year.
All right, and I apologize, but it fits right into where I wanted to go. I'd like to say thank you for Dr. Hobbs. We had Zoom meetings, we've had meetings and meetings and meetings, and I thank you for everything you've done, and everybody on this board for years, literally years, for getting H.B. Suggs on the National Historic Registry. That is something for the town of Farmville to be proud of, and I thank you for your endless hours of that. Thank you so much for that. To the town board, I'm going to ask a favor, and I mean to the town employees, I'm going to ask a favor of you. And I should have talked about this with David before I did, but this is what I'm going to ask you to do. The town accomplished moving to DMV, which was a tremendous, it was big for the town of Farmville. I think it kept the COVID at bay to some degree. It was a major thing. The town employees, they're most appreciative. And I'm going to ask the town employees to kind of help one another. When you're in your offices now, you can shut the door, and you're in your own space. You can shut the door. I'm going to ask that when you go out in the hall at this time, if you would just wear your mask. I'd appreciate that. And I know that may be asking a lot, but would you agree with that, Brenda? When you go out in the hall, if you would wear your mask, when you're in your office, you can shut your door, and that's your space. And keep your hands washed and keep your distance. We have done a good job, but we still have a long ways to go. And I thought about that today, being down here this morning and coming in. I wore my mask in and got back and had a meeting, and we had the mask on, but I'll ask you to do that. The other thing, I look forward to your input for the retreat. We have accomplished a lot in the past year. We did not cocoon. When a lot of towns were folding up, we kept right on going and kept right on moving. We had a lot of families move to Farmville. Paul, you've done an outstanding job on tearing them down and building them up. We thank you for that. Demond, we're excited about your new business. We certainly are. And Gunny, thank you for all you're doing out there too. Thank you so much. And the retreat, I'm excited about that. 2022, What? We just got to 2021. Well, I want to share this with you. Donna's got the story. In the year 2022, Farmville will be 150 years old. David Hodgkins, our town manager, has got a lot of experience in helping towns celebrate 150-year anniversaries. And I'm asking people to help us celebrate this milestone, and I don't think it's something we can wait till next October or November to plan by any stretch of the imagination. So this will appear in the paper. So anybody that recreation will be a big part of this, and all departments will, but I'm asking for your suggestions, and join me when the time comes, and let me know if you're interested in serving on this committee. It's not going to be as big as the centennial, but it's something I think that's worth celebrating, and our town manager has got a lot of expertise, and this will appear in the paper for items of that for those that would like to help. And finally, I want to say this to the board, and I'm going to say this as a very private citizen, not as your mayor, which I'm humbled and thank you for the opportunity, but as a private citizen. I want to thank the board for what you've done, how you've inspired our employees. Our town is absolutely as clean as anyone could get. Had it not been for 8 or 10 inches of rain, you know, we may not have had some of the leaves gathered. But our town employees have gone above and beyond, and this board has had more meetings. I've been here 13 years, longer than that, whatever, 13 years, and we've had more meetings and more emails and more Zoom meetings and more and more and more of everything. And every time this board has been called on, the answer is what time and where I will be there. And the same thing for the town employees. And as a private citizen, I thank you so much for not pumping the brakes. You kept your pedal to the metal, and I appreciate it. We got a long ways to go. And if we keep the course that we're on right now, we can only expect positive results, and I thank you for that. And Dr. Hobbs, I thank you again for being on the phone tonight. I apologize for missing you there. You just have to forgive me. With that being said, is there a motion we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Dr. Hobbs, can I hear you? All in favor? Meeting's adjourned.